is Joshua Montgomery. I'm Director of Youth Ministry here at Lamb's Fellowship in Lake Elsinore. I do youth ministry, young adults. Youth ministry mostly is consisting of high school and middle school. And then Buzzy is our fearless leader. He's a head pastor of a church here at Lamb's, and he's the funniest, most amazing dude I've ever met. In 2009, I started going to church for the first time, gave my life to the Lord. And then from that point on, I decided I wanted to go into vocational ministry. But vocational ministry is a pretty hard industry to get into because it's basically a nonprofit. I went to college for it, so I did 4 years at Manhattan Christian College, which is in Manhattan, Kansas. And I studied youth and family development with pre-counseling tracks and theology tracks. And from that point on, I just did internships and whatever was available. I did an internship about 6 years ago for a church in Arizona called Refinery Church in Goodyear. And when I was in Goodyear, I did some discipleship stuff on staff. I was basically an assistant for a summer for 2 months. I did that internship with everything that I could, and then at the end of the internship, they didn't have any job opportunities, so I moved back home to northern New York, volunteered at a couple different places, and got a job working for Cornell Cooperative Extension. And during that time, I was just enjoying my job, enjoying my life, but didn't feel like I was connected, or at least serving in the capacity that I could at certain churches. And so at that moment, Buzzy called me and asked me if I wanted to do this job based off of connections to that internship I did. And so the transition in terms of like emotions and family was definitely difficult. And then we also transitioned into a youth ministry that was really hurting and was really swollen from that. They had a couple youth pastors before me, and so they had already felt this sense of like, okay, youth pastors move on. And so they probably were scared, and so they didn't trust me at first, and so we had to take everything really slow. Yeah, some of the hardest things when I moved here was there was a couple of leaders that we had to let go when I first got here. That was sucky, because the first thing you want to do is hug people, love people, encourage them, and instead I had to come in and kind of be bad cop and set rules and boundaries and stuff that hadn't been set before. There was just a weird interim period where these kids didn't have anybody in charge, and I think that really threw them for a loop. A lot of students prefer to have boundaries. They don't realize it until they don't have them. And so that was a difficult part, was coming in and kind of saying like, yeah, like I want to change things, and change to them meant loss. It didn't mean change. It meant they were losing what they had, and they'd already felt that way. And so to change things to what I felt the culture needed to be, or change things to what I felt the aesthetic needed to be, was a really difficult thing. For a long time, I felt like I didn't have anyone really on my team. I just kind of felt like I was doing it on my own. Youth group is in a really vibrant season right now. We're growing a lot. I think a lot of it is based in our students taking initiative and kind of making this something that they own themselves. A lot of our students are super involved in our youth ministry, which is one of the things I felt was super necessary for growth. We have students that do worship, teach, run games, run program, basically to the point where a lot of the adults are just kind of getting to hang back and just experience it. It was a long journey because you have to have the right players for it. It's almost like setting up a team. I mean, some people are like LeBron James and can walk into any situation and be the best player on the team and really kind of carry them. I'm not that. I'm very much more like a role player. And so like I needed to develop people around me that have talents and complement me well, because I'm not perfect. And so luckily we've got a lot of these students that have stepped up into their role. And I don't know if it means they'll go into vocational ministry someday, or if it means they'll just be like the dopest volunteer that some church has ever seen in 10 years. But to get to where we are now, it just took a lot of team building and a lot of development and finding the right people that fit our culture and our mold, and really just kind of finding people that are on the same page and wanting to see students' lives changed outside of these walls, and wanting to find leaders that are willing to reach outside of these walls to be with students in their world.